wasn't that just the perfect little first episode, just wrapped up in a nice little bow? Hello everybody, I am PhenomSage. Welcome to another anime review. I said that I wanted to cover a new series this season, and I've been watching first episodes non-stop since the season has started. But this is the first series I've actually chosen to cover because it is just perfect for review material. We'll see if this continues, and we'll see if any other series competes with this, but for now, this is definitely a main contender for a series that I want to review this upcoming season for a multitude of reasons, but we'll get into all of those reasons in this first impressions video. You guys were saying nothing but good things about this series in the comments when I made that plans for next season video, and I feel like I have a basic grasp on what you guys are talking about and why people love this series so much. Kino's Journey, The Beautiful World, the animated series is its full title. I'm just going to call it Kino's Journey, The Beautiful World, or in most cases just Kino's Journey. Revolves around this girl, aptly named Kino, traveling on her motorbike, her sentient motorbike named Hermes. And from what I gather, Kino travels around the world, going to various kingdoms, seeing the sights, learning about the people, and then moving on to the next kingdom. She's essentially a wanderer that wants to see every part of the world, that finds joy visiting other places. That's pretty much all I knew going in. But after watching this episode, I'm actually quite surprised at the way things were structured in this episode, and the way I think things will be structured in the future for this series. Now, as far as I'm aware, this not only has a manga which it's adapting, but it also has an alternate animated version. A 13-episode series that apparently covered different stories, but this series will cover some of those same stories. That's what I've learned looking into it a bit. So obviously the comparisons will be made not only to the manga, but this other series which people really hold dearly. In fact, before this series even began, a lot of people were skeptical and even downright hating on the series before it was even released due to the director not being the original director, the change in art style, and other weird things like that. Obviously, I don't think that was fair. I don't think that was a good judgment because this first episode really delivered on a lot of aspects. And hopefully people, even those people, learn to enjoy this adaptation for what it is. I am interested that this series will apparently have original stories as opposed to the alternate anime version and the manga. I don't know if these are like special side stories that the author wrote or if they're anime original or what, but just let me know if you have that information. Hell, just tell me if this episode in particular is based on any story in the manga or the alternate anime, or if it's anime original. I think it'd be really cool if it was anime original because that would just tell me that even the anime original stories will have that level of quality. Getting into the episode itself though, due to this being a first impressions video, I'm going to try and keep this spoiler free so you can jump in even if you have watched this video. If I decide to cover and review this series, obviously future episode reviews will be fully spoiler filled, so just be prepared for that if I cover this series. But as for this first impressions, I'm going to try and keep everything as vague as possible while still talking about the quality of this episode. One of my favorite aspects about this episode is that we don't start at the origin of Kino. We don't start when Kino departs for her adventure. We start right in the middle of it where she's in the middle of her journey to another country. So she's been clearly doing this for a while. She's clearly had many ordeals already, and this is just another story in her book. And I feel like that's going to be a theme of the series as a whole, is that these episodes are going to be stories of her adventures to other kingdoms. And I'll get into that in a bit, but I have both concerns and positives to say about that, because I think that kind of storytelling can be both a good and a bad thing. In this episode in particular, Kino is traveling to a country where people can kill other people. There's no law, there's no rules that prohibit anyone from killing each other in this town. And the entire episode basically builds up this very unsettling, this very dreadful tone And I feel like most people's first thoughts when they hear about a country where you can kill other people legally is, wow, this place must be a real shithole. There must be bodies everywhere. It must be a town full of the most ruthless people. But when Kino enters the country, she sees that everything is fine. She sees that all of the people are getting along and talking and going about their daily lives with no concerns at all. And this is where this episode really shines, is the way that it builds tone and atmosphere. Throughout the entire episode, you have this very unsettling vibe about this whole place. Why are the people so happy? Why are they still keeping weapons on their walls and in their purses to use at any time? I think this really also speaks to the direction of the show. Obviously, people are going to have their qualms because their original alternative anime director didn't come back for this project. But as somebody who is new to the series, I feel like this director knows what it takes to establish a location and establish a mood. By the end of the episode, our story in this country where it is legal to kill others is finished. Kino is left on her journey. She even says to herself that she does not stay in any country or any location for more than 3 days. As for the specific reason for why, the only reason we get is that she was told that it's just the perfect length to stay in a place. So I don't know if we'll ever get a legit explanation for why she does it, or if she just legitimately thinks it's just the perfect length to stay at any location. But the way it affects this episode is that we kind of get a nice little mini story condensed into one episode. And the way that expectations are subverted in this episode almost makes it like a Twilight Zone type story. That's the impression I got anyways. I don't know if anyone else felt that, but the way that they built up the story and the conclusion it eventually reaches definitely reminded me of like a Twilight Zone, that kind of thing, where it's an episodic story that subverts your expectations. Now, this all being condensed into one episode and this whole story taking place over the course of one episode is very interesting to me and makes me wonder what the future of this series is. There's no confirmed amount of episodes yet. I kind of figured it would be 12 or 13 episodes. This seems like it could be a 12 or 13 episode series, but it would be really interesting if they pushed for 24. I don't think so though. I think that's very unlikely. And honestly, this is the kind of show that I feel works with a single core season. But my question is, I wonder if this episodic nature will continue into the rest of the series. Is the rest of this series going to be one-off episodes containing a mini story every single episode? I would honestly like a mix. I would like a mix of these episodic stories and then a few arcs that maybe stretch over 2 or 3 episodes. I think that's the nice blend there for this kind of story. I feel like in order to contain that emotional weight, sometimes you need to have some arcs that last longer than one episode. That's my problem with episodic series in general, is that sometimes you just don't get the time needed to connect to a certain location or a certain character that will be gone after that episode, or just the story that's being told in that episode in general. It would be awesome if they decided to do that. I'm hoping they do that. But if it is only one-off episodes every single episode till its conclusion, I can live with it. I can live with it. I feel like they'll still be telling interesting stories that are worth watching and worth talking about. One of the more interesting aspects about this episode is our main character, Kino. In the opening scene, she talks about her past adventures and why she continues on traveling regardless of the pain and sorrow that she's felt in some of these past ordeals. And I love her character motivation. She essentially says that despite all of that, she wants to continue traveling because of the beauty in the world and its people, hence the beautiful world. I think this is a really cool character motivation, and I think they can take it to some really cool places in the future if something ends up happening to one of her friends or to her herself, or Hermes. God forbid Hermes gets destroyed somehow. Don't let that happen, because I really like Hermes. I feel like you'll see those motivations hesitate. You'll see her hesitate in general, and it'll lead to some really cool character drama, some really cool character insight. So I'm completely fine with it. Kino, to some people, Kino might come across as like somebody who doesn't have a lot of personality, but honestly, I see a lot of personality and personality potential in Kino. The only thing I question in that opening scene with her dialogue is that she thinks of herself as this petty, just hopeless person, and I wonder what leads her to think that. I wonder if it's something that happened in her past, or if it's just the fact that she's continuing on her journey despite everything that's happened to her, or what. It might be, I think it will be explained in the future, so if it is, don't tell me, but I'm just really interested in why she feels that way about herself. So yeah, long story short, Kino is a very enjoyable main character. I'm so excited to see where they take her in the future, not only location-wise, but just as a character, where they take her development, her personality. The only other thing I briefly want to talk about in this episode that stood out to me as something that I wanted to talk about is the aesthetic, or the animation. Now, this is coming from somebody who has not seen the alternative anime, so just keep that in mind. But a lot of people don't like the way that this looks. They feel it's too different from what the past anime was, and that it doesn't fit. I'm mixed on this. I think it's a very pretty show to look at. I think the art and the animation are both very high quality stuff. Even the CG, while sometimes off, I felt like it was mostly naturally integrated into the episode, so I was okay with even the CG. But on the other hand, for a series like this and the kind of story it's telling, I feel like a more stylized approach could have communicated the tone of the series and what it's going for a bit better. I don't think that the highly polished, clean look fits as well in a series like this. Am I okay with it? Yes, more than okay. I like I said, it's very high quality. I'm fine with this art style, but seeing something a little bit more inventive, a little bit more stylized would have been cool for this series, I will admit. In fact, what would have been really cool is if every single country or every single location that Kino visited, it was done in a different art style. I know that's crazy. I know that would probably add a lot of workload, a lot of unnecessary workload, but I think it would be so cool just to communicate even further the differences in each location by showing them in different art styles. I think that would have been awesome. I feel like that's a missed opportunity, but it's not, it's a nitpick. I'm okay with it still. Don't construe that as like me having a major problem with the episode. Overall, this episode was great. It was a great first episode. It was a great introduction into this world, into Kino, and I'm looking forward to more. As I said in the beginning, right now this is the main contender for what series I will be reviewing this season. I might even open a poll once the first episodes for everything are out and see what you guys want to see me review the most. But as of right now, this is definitely what I want to cover the most. We'll see what happens. All of the shows that I'm really interested in are airing tomorrow and Sunday, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this first impressions, first review of Kino's Journey, The Beautiful World. And before I go, I just want to ask, let me know in the comments how you feel about this style of review. If I decide to cover this series in the future, would you want to see the deeper reviews where I go through the episode chronologically and cover it in great detail and retell everything that happened in the episode? Or would you like a more condensed version where I just talk about the highlights and overall just what I thought of the episode? For these first impressions videos alone, I will continue doing this style of review, but I want to know what you guys want for future reviews, because I've heard people who enjoy both. I've heard people who enjoy the longer in-depth reviews where I cover each part of the episode separately, and I've heard people who want me to cut out the parts where I'm retelling events of the episode and condense it a little bit more. So just let me know what you guys prefer. I'll judge which thing people want more by how many comments prefer whichever thing. So just let me know what you think about that. And that's been all from me for this episode review, this episode first impressions of Kino's Journey. Thank you so much again for watching. Thank you for the support. And as always, have a great day.